Hello and welcome back to another video. Can we go ahead and please forget the fact this was supposed to be out like 2 weeks ago? Help? Okay, to be fair, 2 weeks ago I had the script finished and then Chatty decided to delete it. I was too frustrated to rewrite it, so 2 weeks later, here I am, and I decided to make this little 2.5 part into actually 2 different parts, so now it's 2.1 and 2.2, so here we are at 2.1, and somebody please stop me from rambling. Anyways, let's go ahead and get to it, because honestly, I know a lot of you have been wanting this for 2 weeks now, my members specifically, and I'm sure everybody else for much longer than that, so yes, let's not make you wait any longer. Enjoy! Hello my lovely viewers. Looking for some affordable and good quality anime merch? Want to support your favorite Haikyuu team or join UA? What about joining the Straw Hat Pirates for an adventure or two? Want to join the Black Wolves or the Fairy Tale Guild? Well, this site has that and so much more. Use my discount code and receive 10% off your entire order. Link and code is in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Everything was dark. Despite the complete darkness, his head felt like it was splitting open from opening his eyes. A very dull light shined through the cracks of the boarded windows. Finally grasping that he wasn't at home, panic seeped into Sugawa's veins. He tried standing up to assess the room more, but was stopped midway from his pounding head and the rope restraining him to an old pipe sticking out of the wall. Sugawa's already shallow intakes of air had hitched, feeling the lack of movement in his hands. The rope had already cut deep into his circulation from being tied too tight and made his fingers tingle before it eventually turned numb. Even still, fueled with fear, adrenaline, and desperation, he yanked himself from the pipe, trying to break free, but the rope only dug deeper into his flesh and rubbed his skin raw till he drew blood. The teacher couldn't pay any attention to it. Between the numbness in his hands and the terror, Suga was unable to feel any damage inflicted to his hands. It wasn't until he heard a nauseating pop in his shoulder that he stopped and screamed. To his absolute horror, the scream reached his kidnapper's ears and the door swung open. The masked man approached him and removed the mask, revealing the evident frown plastered on his face. Goshi, you know I don't like it when you hurt yourself. The man walked closer to him, holding out his hand towards Sugawa. The attempts he made to break free for the pipe were nothing compared to when Hugh pushed himself away from the man, scurrying and wedging himself in between the wall and the pipe. You don't need to be afraid, darling. The man's laughter bounced off the walls like some sickening chant. Each step that was taken closer to Suga was another second he wanted to scream for help, but he was too terrified to even manage that. He was alone. Fuck. By the time he reached the alley, Daichi cursed a string of profanities, finding no suspicious activity, and worse, no Koshi. Trying to steady his rising anger and not start thinking rash, he surveyed the area for anything that might stick out to him. First thing was Sugawara's bag. A grading book had slipped out along with a few pens and markers. Then he found the teacher's phone against the other wall, shattered. The phone flickered a few times before a steady stream of blue light showed him Suga's lock screen of them both on a date a few weeks back. The both of them had been smiling into a kiss in the photo. Daichi clenched his jaw and shoved the phone in his pocket, now even more determined to find his lover. His eyes narrowed to a spot on the ground with a broken glass beer bottle. While there was glass pretty much everywhere in the alley, there was a deliberate amount next to where there was obvious signs of struggle. He crouched down and picked up a shard of glass, noticing a tinge of red. The cop's trained eyes followed familiar markings, as if a body had been dragged away. Daichi felt his throat close up, and he only prayed that that wasn't what he thought it meant, and that Sugawara was still alive. For now, all he could do was follow the tracks and call for backup. He reached for his radio, thankful he hadn't changed out of his uniform, even though he'd just gotten home for the day when Sugawara called him. "I'm going to need backup. I have a hostile suspect holding at least one person captive." He gave the location where he was and where he was heading, judging from the trail, just waiting for a response, but his patience was wearing thin. Just as he was about to call into his radio again, a soft crackle, followed by the sound of another voice over the radio. "Saramura, is that you? Aren't you off duty?" Daichi started following the trail stealthily. Whoever had the audacity to try to kidnap Sugawara was a fool for messing with a pissed-off cop, and was going to regret ever showing their face to the teacher. Now isn't the time for questioning whether or not I'm on duty. What matters now is a civilian's life is in danger. I repeat, I need backup, and I expect to see it close behind me once I reach the target. After a string of silence, the officer was convinced he'd be left alone for this mission when a small response came through. Understood. Suffice with the response, Daichi continued down the trail, tucking his radio back into his shirt. The cop had created a name for himself from his quick thinking, level-headed responses to dire situations. It seemed all of that hard work had finally paid off, since now it was the thing saving Sugawara's life. Glass clattered at the bottom of his boots, sturdy enough to not impale through the tough leather. Daichi ducked behind the building, finding the end of a trail that led toward an old abandoned building. The setting seemed too cliché for the cop, yet he couldn't afford to doubt his skills when tracking them, not when Koshi's life was on the line. He learned to do many things as a cop, some things that his high school self could never imagine him doing. But everything seemed different, and even foreign when it was Sugawara he was fighting for. He fought for strangers on a daily basis, from small disruptions in restaurants and banks to saving someone from natural disasters like earthquakes and floods. But this was Sugawara, his Koshi. If he messed up, it was game over. His lover, his world was on the line. Loud shouting turned his attention towards the source, ducking down as to not be seen. The screaming grew until eventually died down. The sound of more booze bottles shattering echoed in the narrow alleyways. Daichi became one with the wall, bleeding into the shadows, watching as the figure walked away, stretching past him. Whoever that was failed to see the cop. While he was supposed to arrest thugs such as that, he turned a blind eye to it this time. His objective was somewhere else, and even if he did intervene, Daichi needed to be rational. The threat of whoever took Sugawara was still unknown. There could be more than one, A whole army for all he knew, and he was only one man. His only job is to take note of the situation and wait for backup. However, if waiting meant Koshi getting hurt, he'd put himself into danger if it meant saving the teacher. Finally approaching the abandoned building, he took note of the boarded-up windows and stepped past the doorway, cautiously proceeding and stepping over old debris. There wasn't a soul in sight. The only sound was the soft thuds of his boots tapping against the rundown flooring and his thundering pulse that only he could hear. The farther he walked, the easier he was able to pick up a sound of crying. Instinctively, the cop responded by approaching the door, reaching for the doorknob, mentally cursing when it wouldn't budge. It was locked. The crying immediately ceased on the other side, whether in fear or silenced. "Koshi, is that you in there?" A sob tore through his throat, hearing the cop's gentle tone. Daichi's heart clenched, trying the handle again before remembering it was locked. "I'm here now, alright? I'm going to get you out of here." "I don't think so." Daichi whipped around, meeting the hooded figure that caused this whole problem to begin with. This is why he wasn't allowed to intervene until backup arrived, so he wouldn't put himself into danger. But one sound of his lover's cries, he couldn't control his movements. Now they were both stuck. Yeah, I'm ending it here. My cat, Miso, has been driving me absolutely insane in the entire duration of this recording. He decided to have the zoomies instead of sit still, so if you heard any background noise, that's exactly what was happening. But yes, I left it on the cliffhanger, so I will be putting a poll up to figure out which challenge I should proceed in, whether it is the second part to this extended part of DaiSuga, or the not waking up prank, or the scare your boyfriend prank. I mean, there's so many options, really. Anyways, I genuinely need to stop rambling. If you want to go ahead and jump to this, become a member. You'll have plenty of perks that are available. I mean, you can get the early access videos, which I try to keep it over 10, at least the bare minimum. It took a while for me to actually build up because, well, you have to start somewhere, don't you? And then, of course, we do have the Discord server, plus you get your own little community chat in the YouTube, and then the chat in the Discord. There's plenty of perks. So thank you to all of my members, all of my lovely duckers. You guys are super duper amazing, so thank you so very much. And I will see you all later.